Welcome to the Nardi Linguistics podcast. Today I'll be joined by fellow YouTuber, TikToker, and Human1011. Makes awesome videos on YouTube and TikTok about lots of stuff, but especially linguistics. It's a big connection here. It's all awesome, and he's got a really big following on YouTube and a similarly large one on TikTok. And I think a small fraction of that following overlaps a lot with my smaller following. So because I've seen a lot of people suggesting that we talk since I started this podcast. So really excited to have you on. Of
Yeah, excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
course, yeah. I think I've definitely had a few videos of people who are just like, this reminds me of something that Human Tunnel, and eventually it was like there's enough of those, and I had to check out your channel, and it's lots of good stuff. So
Now, I've gotten some of those comments as well. So, yeah, I mean, there's only so many things in linguistics, right? So, there's always bound to be some overlap.
yeah, true. They're touching on different like sides of the same topics for sure.
Mhm.
Although something that makes your channel really unique is your it is like I feel like a lot of your videos are about like just things that like are really like surprising. So it'd be like so you'll point out some crazy connection between like two words or something, or like I remember the one of your big ones is about the sound that's in English that looks like it's like some crazy other language or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's like one of the coolest things in linguistics is like there's so many things you kind of just take for granted, like so many things in your language that are actually really interesting, but you don't stop and think about them because you're just kind of using them every single day.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think the surprising aspects of linguistics is one of the things I find really cool. So what I wanted to open with is what's something that was really surprising to you when you first got into linguistics, and then maybe like now that you've had a lot more experience with it, like what's something that's like still surprising or like
Mm.
recently you learned or something.
I think the first really surprising thing is like one of the first things that kind of got me interested in linguistics in the first place is like the Indo-European connection, the way that there's like so many languages, most of the languages of Europe and like Persian and many of the Indian languages, the fact that they're all related. And especially when you do those like vocabulary like comparisons, you look at the numbers in Hindi versus, Farsi versus in English, or you compare like the word for father or the word for mother or like so many of the cognates. Like when I first learned about that, I was like, whoa, like my mind was
Yeah.
completely blown. I just love that sort of like reconstruction thing and the comparison stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely like fascinating because I think it's yeah surprisingly like it's not like common knowledge at all. Like I think I mean probably in our circles it's common knowledge, but like yeah I remember like I feel like I didn't learn about like historical linguistics or like even just like the fact that like languages can have like descendants or even like until I was like a teenager at least, which I don't know. There's probably a time and place to learn things like that. But yeah, I always found that pretty surprising too. So that's definitely like a cool. Oh, are you frozen? I don't know. Brief. There's a brief pause because Wi-Fi issue. But you're talking about Indo-European linguistics being really surprising, and I was definitely agreeing with that. I think it's yeah, it's just because there's so many languages that you don't think are related at all, or that you wouldn't think of as similar at all. But you kind of realize you're in a big linguistic bubble, even if it's a really big one. It's still like a kind of a bubble. Um, so what's the second part of that question was like something more recently? Is there any like crazy thing you just
Ooh.
read or?
Stuff that's been on my I've been looking into I do a lot of stuff on like Arabic, and I've been looking into a lot of stuff with like Arabic morphology stuff. And recently I read a really interesting paper, and it's kind of disputed, but apparently like there's this a large portion of people who do like Arabic morphology and linguistics who are trying to argue that it's like a different part of the brain that does the word processing. So I think like most languages do use like a part of the brain called like Broca's area, which is
Yeah,
it's like known for like lots of languages. And then some people are proposing that Arabic and other Semitic languages like form words using a different part of the brain, which is a really interesting thought. And I'm still looking into it, so I don't really know much about it.
yeah.
But like, what a really interesting thought to think that like a language could be using a different part of the brain. And I don't know, what are the implications of that? So I've been trying to look into that. Very curious about it.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I guess I always like assume that like like all languages are just kind of like at some like on some neurological level all the same. But I mean, it doesn't. That's not like necessarily like a justified assumption. Like it could be different. Yeah, it'd be interesting to yeah look into that paper. So yeah, that would be really surprising. Yeah.
I was just surprised. Like I kind of took it as a baseline assumption, but now, like you said, like I guess it doesn't have to be that way, right? So now I'm thinking like,
Yeah.
What else are like we kind of neurologically taking to be implicit about language? But other languages might do differently, you know?
Yeah, because there's like a certain amount of compartmentalization of the brain, but like it's not the same between individuals, and then it's like yeah, it could make sense that it would be different depending on like your upbringing. If that upbringing involves some different language, who knows? Maybe it just has to be organized differently in the brain. That would
Yeah,
be really
right.
cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
that is great. Yeah, so you're talking about Arabic. That was definitely something we got to get into because you I think you've talked about how learning Arabic has been like really kind of like colored your language learning or your linguistics experience in a really cool way because I don't know, it's like that's not the typical language that most Americans know. And so, yeah, I'm definitely curious on how that experience was in general and how it's helped you learn about linguistics and all that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, so like you said, it definitely massively influenced like my interest in linguistics. It's kind of what got me interested in it in the first place, at least to a large extent. So I'm Lebanese American, so I learned some of it growing up, but like very little.
Okay.
As a heritage speaker, yeah, so I wanted to take university courses to kind of improve it. And I think the two big like takeaways were one, I guess I didn't realize just how different all the Arabic dialects were. Like kind of just growing up, I'm like, oh, it's Arabic, you know, like all the countries speak the same way. It's all the same language. And you learn that all the Arab countries have totally different dialects to the point where, you know, like in Iraq, you can't really even understand a Moroccan, which is kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so like growing up with like a Lebanese dialect, now if I hear a Moroccan person speaking, like I can't understand them. And so it gets in the whole question of like, okay, what is a dialect? What is the language? Right. That kind of was the beginning is of my questioning like what even is language, which yeah, was
Yeah, yeah.
interesting. Mhm.
It's a great introduction to like that whole like I don't know conversation about like how we define languages and dialects because sometimes it's really blurry because it's like I'm sure there's like especially the way we talk about Arabic in the English speaking world, it's always like it's one language. Like it's like that guy's speaking Arabic. Like you would never say like that guy's speaking Lebanese Arabic or something like that. So yeah, I'm sure like learning that and like learning that you're learning a very like specific type or not very specific type, but just a type of Arabic that isn't necessarily mutually intelligible, like really gets you thinking.
Yeah, for sure. It was funny because I kind of thought the course would be like easy because I went into a 101 course. I'm like, okay, I know some Arabic, so the 101 should be kind of easy. And like we start with like the most basic vocab, and I'm sitting here thinking like I don't know any of these words. None of these words are what I thought. Because the course I was taking was like standard Arabic,
Okay.
which is pretty different from like the spoken Lebanese Arabic. So like my initial reaction, like literally day one of the course was, did I like sign up for the wrong language? Like, what is this?
Yeah, because I think you said in a video that like there's no actual native speakers of standard Arabic because everybody learns their like local. You could call it a dialect, but it's just a language. It's a local like Arabic language, and then they learn the standard like in school or something. That's how you said it was?
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty much like that. Yeah, like you grow up speaking like with your family, whatever the local dialect of Arabic.
Yeah.
But then in school you learn like standard Arabic. I kind of think of it like kind of like where Latin was like maybe a few hundred years ago, where like Latin used to be the language of academia and science and all that stuff. So like scientific papers, philosophy, you know, that was all written in Latin, but no one spoke Latin like a few hundred years ago. You'd speak French or you'd speak Spanish or Italian or whatever. So I think it's a kind of a similar phenomenon. Maybe not to the same extent, but that sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah, it's different because well, it's really similar. Like so I think it's a great example, like of just like diglossia, right? Like
Yeah.
writing in a different language than you speak, especially in like academic settings. But what's interesting with Latin is, although there's probably an equivalent of this in like the Arabic speaking world. Um, with Latin, like it would be people with like pretty unrelated languages would learn Latin, like for like English
Mhm.
speakers. Like
Yeah.
I think Isaac Newton wrote in Latin, like he wrote all his physics stuff in Latin. But yeah, it's not like I mean, technically, yeah, we were talking about the Indo-European connection. Technically, English and Latin are related if you go back, but that was probably not helping him a ton when he
Right.
learned Latin in school. So, are there a lot of other people that'll learn standard Arabic in school, but they're like local languages and related?
It's interesting because I think like in the Arab countries, it's mostly people who like grow up speaking Arabic dialects. But I do believe in like other Muslim majority countries, many people will go to like Islamic schools and they'll learn like Quranic Arabic so that they can read the Quran because in
Yeah.
Islam you have to recite the Quran in Arabic to do it properly. And so I think it is very common in many like Muslim majority nations like Indonesia, for example, where a lot of people will learn kind of Quranic Arabic at least in school, but you know, no one's speaking Arabic or anything even related to
Okay.
Arabic on
Yeah.
the street.
Yeah, really. Yeah, I guess really. I mean, I know that Arabics influence had influence on like Indonesian and
Mm.
what is Standard Malay and everything. But
Yeah.
the yeah, the difference would be like they're just like entirely different language families. So like that is kind of a cool thought. And yeah, I guess is there a difference between Standard Arabic and Quranic Arabic?
Yeah, they're very similar. Like in Arabic, they're both like kind of called under the same name. So Fusha is kind of what Arab speakers will call them. And there's some differences. Like Quranic Arabic has a lot more grammatical flourishes and details that are kind of dropped in modern Arabic. And also in the modern standard, there's also a lot more like new vocabulary. So like new words had to be
Yeah.
made for computer and internet and all the technological stuff we've seen over the past few hundred years. But largely speaking, like it's kind of it's essentially the same structure of the language, Quranic versus modern standard Arabic.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I guess maybe like a equivalent could be like ecclesiastical versus classical Latin. I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's hard to make the
Yeah.
analogies like that are perfect, but that's what it sounded like you're describing anyway. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. So you're learning. So you're first getting started learning Arabic. Um, Gets you thinking about dialects versus languages, and also it's like it gets you thinking about just like how I guess how different the written can be versus spoken. Is hold on. Yeah, I think I had something related to this. Oh yeah, I was curious. What how does it relate to like other because like there's Arabic languages, I guess is what we're proposing
Mm.
a way to talk about it, but like how does it relate to other Semitic languages? I'm not actually sure what the time depth is there, like Hebrew or Aramaic, I mean. Are those like is there any mutual intelligibility there, or like how's that work?
I there it's interesting because as after I got like more into Arabic, I started looking to other related languages like
Yeah.
Semitic, and I think there definitely is a lot of like shared roots, and so like you can do a vocabulary comparison, and you can see like lots of similarities. So it's gonna be hard. So okay, one example, laham is meat in Arabic, and lechem is bread in Hebrew, for example. It's like
Oh,
you kind of,
interesting.
yeah, like you can kind of see like the resemblances, and they sound pretty similar. And there's lots of examples like that. I think something like one third of all nouns in Hebrew have maybe not like a same like a synonym in Arabic, but at least have a cognate that is present in Arabic. So you can definitely find lots of shared vocabulary, but like there's not really mutual intelligibility, you know?
Yeah, I figured it might be a little too far back. I guess that
Mm.
the I know that actually because modern Hebrew is like takes a lot of influence from other Semitic languages. That was mainly what I was wondering because I know that like it's you know also when it was when people started speaking Hebrew again, it was one thing they needed was like a lot of modern terms, just like I guess Standard Arabic needed. So I wonder, is that something you know about? Like, did they like borrow a lot of those, or at least the roots? Like the yeah. Actually, could you also explain that? Sorry, I'm asking you a million things. Could you also explain how triconsonantal roots work and all that stuff for or biconsonantal roots, however that works?
Yeah. No, it is interesting just the way that like the Semitic languages work on like how like the meaning of a word is like kind of based on its root consonants. And that I think is what actually kind of makes it easy to at least find comparisons between the different Semitic languages because you know sometimes the vowels might be different and stuff. But if you can find the consonants match up, you know it has a shared meaning. Uh,
Yeah.
and like you said, like when modern Hebrew, you know, when that was when Hebrew was being revised, they needed a lot of modern words, or they needed not even some of the words weren't modern, but some words were just words that just weren't preserved in the historical record. I might be wrong on this, so I apologize
Okay.
if
Yeah.
I'm speaking wrong, but I think the word dog never shows up in the Bible, or it never shows up. Like it just so happens the word dog, which is a very basic word, but it never shows up, which means it wasn't, and it just never showed up in any of the historical texts, so it was never actually preserved into modern Hebrew. But what I think a lot of grammarians and linguists did is they look at other Semitic languages to figure out what the equivalent root would have been if it had survived into modern Hebrew, and then made that the word, which is interesting.
Interesting. So it's like it's almost doing like the opposite of historical reconstruction, or like yeah, you're reconstructing back to like some Proto-Semitic. Who knows if that's what they were calling it back then? But then you're like, all right, let's kind of do those same sound changes that led to all these other Hebrew words and see. Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, it
And,
really is.
yeah, and I guess that's so. Yeah, so the roots that they can create a lot of like what would be in English like words that aren't like related. I guess, or derivatives of each other. Like, right, like you could have Um, or some of them might be like adding an er suffix if you change the vowels or something, but then others like might just be kind of completely different. Um,
Yeah, it's interesting because like whenever two words like share the same consonants, it just means they, at least historically, had some like loose shared semantic root. But well, one, obviously, like all the vowels can change and like the word can change shape and all. So you can have very different meanings depending on the vowel stuff. And two, also, as the language evolves over time, like the semantic relationship between two different words that have the same pair of consonants might be like totally obscured and maybe like way harder to even see the connection anymore. But it's typically still there, especially if you like dig into like especially like Quranic Arabic, you can kind of see more of the older definitions of the words before a lot of them have evolved into their modern dialectal meanings.
yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, because I guess it's like sometimes a derivation of a word of a root can get like kind of solidified or like fossilized into something new that's like you don't necessarily view it as. I'm trying to think of an example in English. You know what I'm talking about? Like, um,
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm also trying to think of an example off the top of my head.
yeah, no. I mean, it always happens like when I'm like talking about something else that it finally like cues
Yeah,
yourself to think.
it'll
But
pop up.
I guess like the singular of the term mouse versus mice, computer mouse,
Mm.
got kind of fossilized into this term for a computer mouse. So as you say, your mouse, um, but the plural did not. So like you usually wouldn't say computer mice. So I don't know, maybe that's the example. I'm only saying that because I'm looking at my mouse right now. But
No, but
it's
like that makes sense, right? Like it is the sort of thing where a word's being used in one context, maybe it develops, maybe like you borrow part of the word into a new context, but you don't borrow all of the grammatical flourishes of that word with you. And so
exactly.
you're stuck with a situation like you said, where you have mouse mice, then in another context you have mouse, maybe mouses, even though maybe that sounds a little weird, but
Yeah, and we have that infix vowel there is kind of like Semitic languages, so that's always
oh
fun.
yeah, it's true. It kind of comes full circle.
Yeah. So it's actually that's something I was curious about because I know you've studied kind of like the history of Arabic. Is it how did that was that always kind of like an aspect of just Afroasiatic languages or like has that is that something like that they kind of know how it formed? I'm always interested in that and like and because you can sort of see how that worked in English, right? Because mouse is like the vowel got fronted or something over time, and so like it was actually like a phonetic change, not a grammatical one initially, but then it kind of became grammatical. Is that how they think it happened, or is it?
Yeah, it's interesting because it's hard, unlike Indo-European where we have like a lot more data and you can kind of like do all
Yeah,
those reconstructions. Like I've seen all your videos where you do like the phonetic evolution from like Proto-Indo-European into like the modern languages, which always like it's really fun to see like, oh, like you actually see each individual change as it progresses. But the problem is, so Proto-Semitic, I want to say was spoken like 6,000 years ago, and then Proto-Afroasiatic, which is even older, was spoken like something like over 10,000 years ago. And
yeah, that's crazy.
it's just like so old, it's like really hard to reconstruct. So I think linguists' best guess, from what little we know, is that that system was already, maybe not to the same extent, but was already a thing even in Proto-Afroasiatic.
Wow.
Crazy to think about that
Yeah, that's
systems
such
like
like a
survived for so
cool
long.
feature. Yeah, like because I was. Yeah, well, it almost makes me mad because I want to know how that formed because that's like I want let me like subtly influence English so it has triconsonantal roots or something. But that is really cool that it's so like conservative to have those meanings like derived from like roots and then but then they're so different in different languages. But I guess but you can just kind of tell like when they're related and at least within like Semitic languages.
Yeah, it is interesting. I think Semitic, I mean, we have way more data on Semitic just because it's been like historically recorded for so much longer, and a lot of the
Yeah.
languages were Semitic. And so Semitic is like very extensive in fact, compared to most of the other branches of the Afro-Asiatic family, Semitic, as far as I'm aware, actually has like the most amount of this kind of non-concatenative morphology, the way the kind of the roots can be played with, the way the vowels
Yeah.
and stuff. And what you find is if you actually compare the modern Semitic languages, a lot of them have really different patterns. And so it's like a big question is like, okay, how does some of these, one, how does the system evolve in the first place, which is kind of hard to think of. But two, how do speakers kind of innovate new patterns? Because you look at like Hebrew and you look at Aramaic, and they have like two completely different ways of forming, for example, the present tense that it's hard to reconstruct back. And you think, okay, how on earth was the present tense in Proto-Semitic if all the languages have a different weird non-concatenative pattern? And so it's kind of an open question that people are trying to look into now, especially with a lot of the modern developments with the dialects. Like people are trying to see how new patterns are arising, to think, okay, maybe if this is how they're arising in the modern dialects, maybe this is how some of the historical stuff came about thousands of years ago.
Yeah, that is really fascinating because it reminds me of something in a previous episode of this podcast. I was talking with Words at Work, another YouTube
Yeah.
linguist. He was talking about how sometimes language changes can sort of be intentional. Like I always think of it as just like this gradual, like almost like emergent thing, that people aren't really part of. We're just like the cells of an organism. But maybe, yeah, maybe like people were just like, we have these roots, like we can do stuff with them. Why don't we like innovate on this pattern or something? Like maybe it was more intentional than you'd think, especially with like writing, because I know there's a huge tradition of yeah, as you were saying, like Semitic languages being written down. Actually, some of the earliest ones, like Akkadian, right, is a Semitic language, right?
Yeah.
Or it's like one of the only ones in in one branch of something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the East Semitic branch, I think
Yeah.
it's like the only sort of one of the only languages from the East Semitic branch that we know of.
Yeah, so that's cool. So you could probably see like maybe how somebody would learn that language and then like maybe change or like decide how they might want to innovate on that cool system. Well, yeah, that's crazy. That's so, and it's also just crazy how old Afroasiatic the
Yeah.
reconstruction is. Like that's about the oldest proto language I think there is, right?
Yeah, I think as far as I know, it's the oldest proto language that's ever
Yeah.
been like had serious evidence behind it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Obviously, like yeah, like the whole proto language concept implies that there's probably a language before that as well. But yeah, like as
Right.
far as we can go back, that's really cool. And it's also yeah, it's crazy that it's so conservative. So like, are there like I know you're talking about how there's like less data, and I always need to remind myself that when we're talking about different language families, whereas like yeah, there's so much more data on Indo-European languages. It's also where like the discipline of like the modern discipline of linguistics sort of like originated with people looking at a lot of Indo-European languages. Like people have been studying languages forever, but like the one that our education is based off of was kind of coming out of this Indo-European context. Anyway, all that as a preamble to. I'm just curious how like are there good analogies between like the languages that the Afroasiatic languages and Indo-European? Like, is there like could you like point to these two languages are kind of like Romance languages, or these ones are kind of like the
Mm.
relationship between Latin? Like, because I think those are really useful for people who don't have an experience with the languages like Semitic languages and Afroasiatic languages in general.
Yeah, no, it's definitely good to analogize like that. The unfortunate thing I think is that I think the Afroasiatic family is just really different from the Indo-European family. Just like in a lot of, I mean, one of the ways is like that weird morphology system, but also like they have really extensive consonant inventories. I guess there are some Indo-European languages that do that, but there's always like most Afroasiatic languages have some series of like really emphatic consonants. So like whether that be like ejective sounds like and like or implosives, a lot of those in like sub-Saharan Africa, which like it's really hard to map onto Indo-European because as far as I'm aware, no Indo-European language has ejectives, I think. Um,
Yeah, well, I bet I bet there's some exception and somebody
it
will
probably
comment.
is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
right.
can't think of one on the top of my head. So
Yeah, but there's also a lot of especially the ones in sub-Saharan Africa, a lot of them are tonal as well, which I know there are a few tonal Indo-European languages. Like some in India, and I think Afrikaans is said to be developing tone.
yeah, there's in some Germanic languages, I think I've heard actually I had a teacher or a professor in college talk about how and it maybe it's like one of the Nordic languages had some sort of tonal system like with specific word pairs, but like not like super
Mm.
I guess expansive. But yeah, that's really so. Wait, so are there languages that have lost this triconsonantal system, or is it basically present in all of them?
What's interesting is that some of them, especially I want to say the Chadic and Amadic families, but I'm not certain. But I think those families actually have biconsonantal root systems, which is really interesting. And so then there's like this big question on like, was it originally biconsonantal and became
Ah,
consonantal, or the other way around, or did it get lost entirely? Like, so it's again, it's one of those open questions that we don't really know. But it's like a Hausa, for example, is I think it's one of the largest Afro-Asiatic languages spoken mostly in Nigeria and Niger. And it's, I think, almost entirely built on biconsonantal roots. So most words based on two consonants that have some sort of core semantic meaning. And so it's kind of interesting to think like maybe the original system was two roots, and then in the Semitic languages, it was extended to three roots. Like we're not really sure.
Yeah, yeah. I guess there's no reason I can think of off the top of my head why it would have to be one or the other. So that's
Yeah,
really yeah.
yeah,
Probably, yeah. That's I guess the cool thing about a language family that is less studied or not as studied as Indo-European is that you'll probably get to see some really cool work coming out and like that'll reveal a lot of these questions. Whereas it really does feel like, aside from like the subclades of like your Indo-European language families, it seems like we have a pretty good idea of how stuff works.
Hmm.
There's not a lot of crazy stuff coming out within the last few decades. I feel like, other than maybe like connecting it to like archaeology or something, but like that's not really linguistics at that point. But very cool. Okay, so you've definitely gone into like the history of Arabic, and you probably studied a little bit of the history of Indo-European languages. You're talking about that was kind of something you got into at first, right? Uh,
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, it was kind of one of my springboards, at least into a general interest in linguistics. Yeah.
so what makes Arabic, like what kind of developments through historical sound changes and stuff like made Arabic like the unique language to say, like as opposed to the other languages, and then obviously we kind of know some of the general differences between language families, but
Right. One of the actually, at least on a phonological level, one of the interesting things is well, one of my favorites actually is that in the same way that like English had like Grim or like at least sorry, the Germanic languages had like Grimm's law, which kind of
yeah,
defined the Germanic languages. And like one of the iconic sound changes there is the change of from the P sound to the F sound. So that's why like most Indo-European languages start with the word for dad starts with P, right? Like pater versus father in English. Arabic
yeah.
actually went through that exact same change.
Oh,
Uh,
that's cool.
yeah, so P also changed to F, which a fun fact is also why Palestine in Arabic is Philistine. So maybe you've like heard the term like Philistines, for example, historically, or in Arabic, some people say like Philistine. But there's a lot of other examples like Singapore is Singapura, a few other examples like that. But yeah, so that's kind of a fun one. And there's a few other like phonological changes that at least the Arabic branch went through. They kind of distinguish it from Hebrew, for example, or like some of the other like the Ethiopic Semitic languages. So like those pharyngeal emphatic sounds that are kind of iconic for Arabic,
Yeah,
like oh and
could you
oh.
explain how pharyngeal sounds work? I know those ones are always confusing.
Yeah, they really are confusing because they're one of the rarest types of sounds in the world, I think. But like to pharyngealize a sound, what you have to do is you have to back your tongue while pronouncing it, and so it kind of feels like a constriction in the back of your throat. So like it's easiest to hear it with like the letter H. So there's like a normal H, and then there's a pharyngeal H. So there's just a normal H, and then a ha, ha, which is
Interesting.
pretty tough to do if you're not used to it.
Yeah, wait, so like when you're like moving, it's a tongue position with pharyngalization.
Yeah,
Uh,
so technically it's like the root, like back of the tongue, although like subconsciously it kind of feels more like you're tightening your throat than anything.
and so like when you're talking, like if you could you just like say a whole sentence like that? Like is that, I'm not asking you to do that right now, but like could you like just talk like everything, like all your vowels were pharyngalized? Like is that a possible thing? Like is that
Yeah, like you hear it. It's actually it's interesting because that actually happens in a lot of dialects where like they'll have like a consonant and vowel harmony where like the pharyngalization will spread throughout the word. And so if you have sometimes a word that starts with like one of those emphatic consonants can have like that pharyngalized character of the sound kind of transfer through the whole word. So a word with just a single emphatic consonant can be pronounced entirely emphatically with just like the entire tongue constricted throughout the entire pronunciation, which is kind of fun to listen to.
yeah, that does sound. I'll have to check that out. Because I don't know, like I think as somebody who's not studied a language with pharyngalization, which I guess makes sense that most people probably wouldn't. It's like typologically pretty rare, but
Yeah.
I always kind of thought of it as like I don't know, like something like voice actors would be able to do because like you know like you'll hear like that. It seems like that's how people would do like the crazy voices in like Kermit the Frog or something. Like you have a really good control over your like tongue position or something. So I wonder if they're like if they're pros at learning pharyngalization or something. But
It is interesting. I think I remember for like some silly like joke video I made once, I had to do I guess some languages do like buckle voice, which is when like a word is like a sound is redirected like through a pocket of air in your cheek or something. It's really, really rare. But apparently, like voice actors are good at it, especially voice actors for Donald Duck, because I guess that's how Donald Duck speaks. And so,
Oh, what the heck?
yeah, so it wouldn't surprise me if there's some character who their voice is like particularly pharyngalized. I'm sure voice actors in general have really good control of certain muscles.
Yeah. No, it's like there's definitely some overlap, and I
Mm,
remember I was talking with one of my friends who was saying like we were talking about how like a lot of singers will learn the IPA, often probably because they're speaking or singing in different languages, but or like actors will learn it too because maybe I wonder if that like if being able to read the symbols without like doing some sort of like I pronunciation or I uh, um, writing. Which the term "I" writing actually doesn't work when you say it out loud because
it's
the whole
true.
for anybody who's never seen that, it's "I" spelled as UIE. So it's like it's a you're writing a word a specific way so that way people know how you're pronouncing it, as opposed to just um, writing it the standard way where there's maybe multiple pronunciations. Anyway, I've noticed. I've noticed that that's something like I think actors maybe will learn because so that way they don't have to do that pronunciation. And yeah, I mean it makes sense that somebody whose job or like hobby is to be a voice actor or just like an actor in general, like that they really need to have a pretty good grasp on whichever person's phonology or something that they're impersonating. And some people will do learn different languages, I guess, for movies and stuff, but it's not always the best.
Yeah, that's also like kind of impressive. I mean, I know actors will go through crazy lengths for movies. That's a commitment, you know?
Yeah, no, it's pretty cool. Yeah, I guess yeah, no hate on any actor who's got like a slight accent. I remember for the show Narcos
Hmm.
about like the Cali or the Medellin cartel originally. In Colombia, they had an actor that actually wasn't even, I don't even know if he was a native Spanish speaker, who, when I first watched it, I was entirely convinced that he was, because I just started learning Spanish at the time. And now you can kind of hear he has like a little bit of a Portuguese accent. But yeah, that's pretty crazy. Like, I guess
It's impressive. Yeah.
learning a language just for a show. Reminds me of like those conlangs and stuff, but that people will learn with
Yeah.
like a High Valyrian or something. I guess that they're maybe not actually learning the language. They're just like
Reading the scripts probably.
IPAing it or something. Yeah, that's pretty crazy. But yeah, makes sense that voice actors would be better at learning the crazy sounds of Arabic. Well, what are some other than like pharyngeal sounds? Are there like any like pretty unique ones that English speakers would probably struggle with?
The fringe ones are the main tough ones. I guess there's also the uvular fricatives, so like ha and the va. So I mean, if you speak like French or German, it's
Okay.
kind of like the letter R. So, but like English speakers don't really have the ha or va, so those sounds can be kind of tough for them, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's some reconstructions of Proto-Indo-European that have this. So maybe yeah,
Oh,
like
really?
for not the fringe, the laryngeal is a very similar term.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like there's consonants that they're just not quite sure what they are, but I don't know. Did they have similar effects in Arabic on the vowels or anything?
Yeah, actually, I think those along with those pharyngeal sounds have an effect of like coloring vowels and like
Oh wow. Okay, so
backing them.
I wonder if that influenced how some people reconstruct Proto-Indo-European. Like they see how it affects the vowels in Arabic, and they're like, oh shoot, that probably had a similar effect back then.
That's a good point, actually. It wouldn't surprise me at all, actually, if someone's like, "Oh, look at that," you know,
Yeah.
like Proto-Semitic only had three vowels, but Hebrew has five vowels, and the reason for that, I think, is because of the emphatic consonants in Hebrew that kind of drag the vowels around and created extra vowels. So it wouldn't surprise me if
Oh,
a
very cool.
similar thing at least influenced the thoughts of linguists when reconstructing Proto-Indo-European.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting how consonants can like it almost makes sense when like a consonant affects a vowel after the vowel. Like I don't know, like if you can just see like it's like you're because we just it's like the coda of the syllable is just including that vowel and the consonant or whatever. But like the before it is so weird. Like I know in I think like Quechua or something saying like a uvular consonant before an I makes it kind of like an eh or something. So it's a way of just like getting new vowels because then if you collapse that Q to like a K later, like through some merge, then you just got a new vowel, free vowel.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of cool. I think actually I think a very similar thing just happened in Hebrew where there's a series of emphatic consonants that move the vowels around, and then the emphatics merged with the non-emphatics, and so now you
Oh
just have
yeah.
the vowel.
It's like the consonant, I don't know, like on some abstract level, the consonant turned into a vowel and just like moved throughout the word.
Mm.
Like I don't know,
Yeah,
like
actually, yeah.
yeah. Yeah, that's I think with like accents and stuff, a lot of the times when linguists are talking about it, like the word sound can get a little confusing. So could you explain to people like what that means like in a linguistic context when we're talking about like sounds and stuff like that?
Yeah, like it's kind of hard to disentangle because I guess there's like the idea of well, we can get into without getting too complicated, like the idea of phonemes versus like allophones. So like the general idea is that there's certain sounds that we associate as being associated with the same letter. So maybe like a good example of this is like the letter T in English. So if you like really listen or like try to feel your breath when you pronounce the T in the word top, T-O-P, versus the word stop, S-T-O-P, like you'll feel way more breath with top than with stop. And so like technically those are two different sounds, right? They're literally two different sounds, but like mentally we just kind of associate them under the same umbrella of T. And so we say, okay, like this one sound, phoneme, we would say, and T kind of has two different realizations depending on context. And so sometimes you have situations where, you know, certain vowels or certain consonants might make different sounds, but they're not really different letters, right? So like an E might become an E in front of an emphatic consonant, but in the same way that those two different T's are really just the same letter, the E and the A might be the same vowel, at least in that
Yeah,
context.
no, that's a good breakdown of it because it's like
Mm.
sound is like all the way at the top of the hierarchy of abstraction, I guess. Like
Yeah, right.
all these things you were just talking about are sounds, but then there's like phony, or then there's letters, which well, actually, I guess letters aren't sounds, but letters are used to write sounds, but then they're used sometimes to write multiple phonemes. So like you'd say like
Yeah.
a I don't know like
Which is a bad
like a
example because the
C.
spelling is so bad, you know?
Yeah, like C is like can be reused to write different phonemes, like the k sound or the s sound, right? Or like sh sound sometimes. And then within those phonemes, there's also different variants, like different allophones. So yeah, that's where it gets kind of crazy. Um, but yeah, you're right. English is it's a tough like starting point to talk about a lot of uh, a lot of linguistic concepts because of the difficulty with the writing system. I wonder if that's like has any like measurable effects on how people uh, like are able to learn these kinds of concepts. But I guess wasn't an issue for a lot of people that I know because everybody I know who's a native speaker of English that learn linguistics is doing fine.
That's true, yeah. But I know I think it makes communicating these ideas a little bit harder. I don't know if
Yeah.
your experience, if you've kind of struggled with like how to communicate, at least with phonetics or phonology, certain sounds when our writing system. I think the biggest one that's annoying to me is that double O and double E aren't pronounced like O and E. They're pronounced oo and E. You
Yeah.
know, that one like
Like
drives me up the wall. I hate that one.
yeah, no, and it's like I don't know, it's not even like entirely consistent. Like book is like the O vowel, but then there's also wood is OULD. It's like
Like
yeah,
flood, right? Flood has like the
yeah.
sound.
Well, yeah. I mean, you can endlessly
Yeah,
get
right.
mad at. I do see people like push back on that sometimes, and say like English is actually relatively regular, especially with like new words, which maybe is fair, but like I don't know. I think it's pretty tough from a starting point. Especially, I can't imagine it as a learner. That makes me really grateful.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, because it's yeah like English is like such an important global language nowadays, and especially in its written form, like it's kind of the language of the internet to a certain extent. So yeah, it's got to be really annoying. So that's always got everybody be charitable with non native English speakers
Yeah,
who
for
struggle with
sure.
that. I
Please.
can't imagine how difficult that'd be. Like
Yeah.
I'm learning Spanish and stuff, and it's and the writing system is just so phonetic. It's like God, that's awesome. Like I feel like I have cheat codes or something. It makes it really useful to describe the different like allophones and stuff like that because you can just talk about the positions. And is Arabic in its written form like kind of where would it be close to English or Spanish? I guess.
Definitely way closer to Spanish, like almost
Okay.
entirely phonetic. There's a few like rules, but they're all like regular for the most part, like a some like assimilation of consonants and stuff. Although I think some of the dialects are a little bit more iffy just because, you know, the written form of the language was made for like classical Arabic. It wasn't made for the dialect. So like for example, the written form of the language only has three vowels. It's like ah, e, and u, but most of the dialects now have five vowels. So they also have and o. And most Arabic dialects will still just write them with the symbols for e and u, and you just kind of have to
Oh,
know by context on which one's which.
yeah. I guess is it often written as with no vowels, like as an abjad, or or is it more common to see those vowel marks?
The short vowels are like almost never written, but the long vowels are standardly written. Yeah,
Okay.
the long vowels, because the long vowels are the same symbols as like their equivalent semivowels. So the character for the long E is
Ah,
the same as the character for W. Yeah, and E is the same as the character for Y or Y.
yeah, yeah, that makes sense because it's like yeah, I don't know if you've ever tried this, but I've always wanted to like redesign an orthography for English. Like not that I actually think anybody would use it, just but to see like how like useful I can make
Hmm.
it. I always end up using semi-vowels in some way to like represent vowels. It would be like I don't know, like C would be like because this is how it's kind of written with the IPA too. It's like S and then the I vowel and then Y or something, or like S. I don't know.
Hmm.
Like, or it's actually S. I think the long vowel and then yeah. Anyway, that it's intuitive to me on a weird level that that Arabic does that. So I like that.
No, it is. I think it's like not too. I mean, that's kind of how I think Latin did it, right? Like I think Latin also wrote it's y with the same
Yeah,
e. Because I guess they were the same phoneme back then,
yeah,
but
initially,
it was a
but no,
regular process.
not. I think even in yeah for a while, it eventually. I think u and w were always different phonemes in Latin.
Oh, oh
But
yeah.
they would always write it with the v character, I guess. So
Yes, I guess it's the
yeah,
same thing.
very similar thing. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I guess that it almost like it's like if they didn't do that, would we consider semi-vowels, or would we call them semi-vowels, or would we just call them something different? Like we think of them as like parts of the same thing, but maybe we wouldn't if all these languages didn't write them like that. But
Yeah, it's
I guess everybody's
interesting.
always thought of it like that.
If our language probably wrote it differently, we probably would consider them way more different instead of thinking, oh, they're pretty much the same sound, they're lumped together.
Yeah. Well, one thing I will say to English's credit that is helpful about its crazy orthography is it's good for like historical linguistics, learning about it, like right because
Mm.
you can see
That's
like yeah you can learn a lot more. You could probably recognize more cognates in other like Germanic languages and stuff, and definitely in Romance languages, like because if we wrote them all the way we pronounce them now, like we might not even recognize them as like Latinate words. So
Yeah. No, that is nice. That is nice. I mean, like it requires learning more rules, but the fact that like I can recognize any like French word or like any Spanish word if it ends with like Tion or
oh
Cion,
yeah.
really convenient. I love that.
Do yeah, I do appreciate that. So can't hate on English orthography too much. Um, yeah. Yeah, I was going to ask you. We already kind of touched on like the difficult sounds of Arabic. And I guess I'm in terms of like sound systems in general. We've kind of covered a little bit, but I was wondering like because there's different like thought processes about this and like language learning, which I guess there's overlapping communities, but I've noticed that actually on the internet, it's like the language learning community and linguistics community aren't like entirely like one thing. You can definitely find people that are supposed to are focused on one or the other, and might not actually know a ton about the other. So like, I always found that interesting. But within language learning, because you've obviously had experience with that, do you how important is learning a sound system like and like how what's taking it too far like or is there taking it too far in terms of lyric because I know
Mm.
some people will be like oh no it's fine to have an accent other people will be like perfectionists about it and I'm wondering where you kind of fit in there.
I think to me, I think it reminds me of I think it's like Zipf's law or something, or like where like you can do 20% of the work to get like 80% of the result.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, or something like that. Where it's like I think you don't have to put in that much effort to get like an okay accent. Like you're still gonna have an accent. People will still know, but it doesn't take that much work to like at least get close enough that you can approximate most of the sounds in your target language, at least in my experience. And so I think that honestly that's all you really need to do. And maybe if you want to, you can perfect it over time. But I don't think you don't need to like strive over making sure like every single like phoneme you pronounce is exactly how native speakers pronounce it. Like as long as the sounds you make are understood and they're close enough, I think that's fine personally.
yeah. That's a good actually good point about is the same thing goes with like vocabulary, right? Like if you go to the front of the zips distribution or whatever you can learn most of the words that people actually use, right? And then that tail of words like you can maybe get through context or something. And it's and yeah, with the consonants or the just like pronunciation, like clarity, like yeah, you really only need to get most of the way there to like start talking to people. And yeah, it being perfectionist about it has definitely has downsides. I think I agree with everything you said, but like personally, I'm always just like crazy about it. Like I'll always like just go all in and like try to make sure I'm pronouncing like every allophone correctly and stuff. Like, um, but yeah, that's probably just more of me like nerding out. So
No,
yeah, I'm not gonna like tell everybody they have to do that.
no,
And
I definitely feel that as well. I think it's just like the linguistics, the linguists
yeah,
want to be like, oh, I want to get all the allophony right, like got to make sure everything's perfect.
exactly. Yeah, no, I remember like well, one thing that I think is useful that like people tend not to do that I think would be better if more people did it, but I don't know how the heck to easily teach this. Would be like recognizing when you actually know how to pronounce something, but you just don't know that like so like in Spanish like the allophone of D is in between vowels intervocalically is like the sound like that's in English like but like so many people will pronounce it ado or something like say amado they say amado like and it's just like you actually know this sound like this you know this one like so like obviously I'm not like you can't be mad at people for not properly pharyngealizing necessarily
Right.
but it's like I wish they taught that better. Like it's like yeah, you actually do know how to pronounce this like a native speaker. Yeah. So
I like that example a lot because I think there's also like the reverse of that exact same example, like with English and Spanish, on how the R in Spanish, like it's a single R, like in pero, like how most American speakers have that, how they pronounce, at least, oh yeah, it's the same letter. The letter D
yeah,
between two vowels, like ladder, has that same R in pero, for example. And
exactly. Yeah, it's a
I think
really
most people realize
interesting
that.
like it's a really interesting like mirror image
Yeah.
content. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I don't know. Like I guess I don't know how much like linguistic like groundwork you really have to lay to like teach
Mhm.
that to somebody, but it's definitely helpful when I was learning Spanish. But like yeah, I wish that was like something that if it is easy to teach, that people would start teaching because I think it's really cool to just like say like, hey, this language is just written differently, but it can shares a lot of stuff with your language. So and yeah, and same with like your example with aspirated and non-aspirated consonants. Like we are capable of and native English speakers without even thinking about it, de-aspirating a consonant. So
Yeah, it's true. For learning like I want to say it's like Mandarin, I think, has distinguishes between like aspirated versus non-aspirated.
yeah,
And so like I think that's a big struggle for a lot of learners. But I think if they knew about that sort of like allophony or like those examples in English, it would help. Although it is a little hard to teach or to at least demonstrate that. There's a bit of a learning curve, yeah.
yeah, and well, one thing that helps there is that it's in Chinese, you can kind of just think of the unaspirated consonants as just like voiced,
Yeah, that makes
because
sense.
intervocacally they are voiced, and like at the beginning of a word, like yeah, a Chinese speaker would totally understand that you're just trying to do the de-aspirated one if you say the voiced one. But yeah, what do you have like? I don't. Everybody's got their like own like I don't know like synesthesia or something. Like do you have like a sound that just like clicks for you? Like you just love like this one like part of the IPA.
I really love the alveolar lateral fricatives. It's like the Welsh double L, like the sh,
Yeah.
and the voice one as well, the ja. Those I mean, just love those sounds.
Yeah. I think it's when it's like you can figure it something about like teaching yourself how to like pronounce that sound or whatever like is really satisfying because it's
Yeah.
I think I tried to say that some comments on this video that I made said that not all dialects pronounce the sound, but like in the word place, you kind of do that Welsh L, like because the aspiration like sort of affects your lateral L, right? It's like place. So I tried to. I guess there's lots of dialects where probably they don't do that as much. But
Mm.
yeah, that. It's like that's almost another example where it's like this sound is so cool and I love it, but I bet you didn't know you could like sort of pronounce it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
100%. Like so, again, it goes back to like so much of like we don't realize the things we're doing. We just kind of
exactly.
use language all the time and we don't stop and think about it. And there's so many
Yeah,
cool
full
things.
circle.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's just so many cool things that you can unlock by just by kind of abstracting away from that the writing system that sort of for most of your well, like when you're growing up and learning how to read and stuff, like kind of structures the way you think about language. But yeah, there's lots of cool stuff under the hood for sure. Yeah, I like what's it called? I like Chinese's like retroflex consonants.
Yeah.
Like j and ch and yeah, all that je. Like I think that's just like so satisfying. I don't know. I couldn't explain why, but
That's a good pick. I really struggle with differentiating like the retroflex versus like the palato-alveolar because I
yeah,
three different. I think it's like a three-way distinction between what is it, retroflex and I don't know much about the.
yeah. It's there's like like there's ch and j.
Hmm.
Are there any other ones? I think those are like the main places of articulation that people can get confused a lot. And then there's also on top of that, what makes it even more complicated is like there's fricatives versus affricates and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, which goes crazy.
that's
So
tough.
so yeah, with Arabic turning P into like a fricative, it doesn't. Did it like drop P? Is that something I've heard about Arabic? Like they
Yeah.
remove real P in
Yeah,
Arabic?
actually, that's one of the funny things about Arabic is that like it has so many of these like really difficult sounds that English speakers struggle with. But then there's like so many of what we might consider really basic sounds that Arabic just completely does not have. So there's no letter V at all. So there's no V, and there's no P. I mean, that's the biggest one. There's no P sound.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's like a joke that like Arabs instead of drinking like Pepsi and eating pizza, they'll drink Bebzi and eat pizza.
Okay, so they usually like or will substitute a B instead of like an F.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think historically F was more common just because the P had become the F. And so like I think it was the maybe still mental association. Or maybe I think also off the model of Greek, because I think Greek also went through that change where pi
yeah,
became
good.
pi. Yeah. So I think historically like P's become F's way more, but nowadays becomes B.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, I think typologically, like drop not having a P is pretty rare. I think it's like not as rare as you'd think, but it's still really rare and like kind of crazy that like a major world language or group of languages or something does not have that.
Right. But
Yeah,
it's cool. It's interesting.
like usually it's the other way around. It's like a F becoming a P in a language, like in Hawaiian or something.
Yeah, like for
Like
like
with just really reduced phonological inventory. But maybe it's just like if you have enough phonemes, then you're allowed to just get rid of one too. Like
yeah, right. They
that's
have enough
fun.
already, you know.
Yeah, you can only push your learners so hard. So so yeah, like something that when we think about all this, like kind of looking under the hood at languages and stuff, and making connections between different languages. One thing that a lot of people like to do is conlang. So you're saying you've been working on a conlang, and I definitely want to hear about it, and I want to hear about like your thoughts on conlanging in general because I think it's a great way to like to teach languages. So it's cool that you're doing that in like videos on your channel, right? Like
Yeah, yeah. So I've been
yeah,
making a few shorts here and there about it.
that's cool. Yeah, I think that's like such a great way to teach people about languages because it's like such a creative thing, and you can be like, oh, you think this sound is cool? Let's just throw it in there. Let's put it on some words. But yeah. Anyway, tell me about your conlang.
Yeah, so I don't know if you're familiar with the Conlangs that like Etymology Nerd has done in the past, but he's made like lots of kind of crazy conlangs. He had like a dolphin language and a bird language and stuff like that.
Yeah, did somebody just tell me about the dolphin one is
Yeah.
pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, so I saw those and I think I was inspired maybe like a year ago, and I kind of want to make my own. So I thought, oh, it would be kind of funny to make like a dragon language that would require breathing fire as like a part of some of its phonemes. Like, oh, that'd be kind of fun. And then like people really liked it, and so I thought I'd just expound on it. And I mean, I really like conlanging, so I was happy to do it. And so for the past year or so, I've been kind of more so fleshing it out, and it's almost to a state where I'd say it's like, I mean, not done. I don't know if you can ever really finish a conlang, but like to a state where it's like robust enough that you could actually learn it and maybe have some conversations in it and write in it. It's kind of
Provided you have
cool.
like a lighter or something, right?
Yeah, yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah, that's funny. Somebody was like talking about that on so there's like the guy with the lighter. Like somebody commented that on one of my videos, and I was like, wait, what are you talking? And then I found the Conlang stuff. So yeah, that's really funny. And so is it like a phoneme that you like if you say a word like is like ma or something you say so and then you say it with the lighter on, is that like that's how you distinguish like what a dragon would be breathing fire or something?
Yeah, it's interesting because yeah, the lighter's supposed to, because humans can't breathe fire, so the lighter was originally just meant as like a gimmick for me to be like, imagine I'm a dragon. Every time I light the lighter, it breathes fire. But now it's kind of just become a thing where it's like, I guess in universe, if humans want to speak Draconic, they just need a little fire sorter on them or something. But
Yeah, that's
yeah,
it's crazy how you think of it, and then you think about all like the context that would be necessary for a human to speak this, and then it's like it gets you thinking on like yo, I could start doing some world building and like get a crazy universe going, and that's literally what Tolkien did, right? He's like he just created some languages, and he's like, you know what? I'm gonna make this language this way, and in order for it to make sense, I'm gonna have to have the speakers be like this, and then all of a sudden, boom.
yeah, that's
So yeah,
always my favorite story of hearing how he just decided to make a whole world just because he had these languages he wanted to use. It's so cool.
yeah, the power of linguistic nerds, right? That yeah, that's really cool. That it reminds me of there was like a joke Conlang called K-bop. Have you ever seen that?
Is it the one with the hats?
Yeah, is that phonemic hats? Like so it's like you have to be wearing a certain hat. I don't even know. I can't even imagine what the world building for that would be like.
I can't
But
imagine. Oh my gosh.
that's yeah, that's really cool. And so is it do do you have like a lot of like world building built into it, like with I don't know, different dragon dialects or something, or like how's that work?
I haven't been doing dialects, although I actually have wanted to do dialects, especially because I thought it'd be kind of fun if like there's like my dragons breathe fire, but what if there was like ice dragons that had their own dialect, or like I don't know, some other, maybe like the D&D dragons. I know there's lots of different types of D&D dragons. So I haven't done dialect yet, but I have been doing like some kind of soft world building. I really like the world building that can be like seen in the words depending on what like certain vocabulary means. So for example, like in the same way that like in English, we often say something's running if it's like working well, like, oh, your refrigerator's running, right? Well, in Draconic, it's flying, which like makes
I
sense.
love
It's
that.
about
Yeah,
like, oh, it's flying, it's working, it's functioning. And so like other things like that, where it's like you can kind of toy around with the vocab and you can think like, okay, how would a dragon view the world? How might that affect the way their words develop or evolve over time? It's really fun, and it makes you
yeah,
consider things in a new perspective.
yeah. It's a really good like creative exercise to put yourself in like some completely different uh well, I don't know, yeah, different animals' shoes. I don't know. See, it shows how just that phrase shows how human centric human language is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've always thought about that in like terms of like alien communication, like how some concepts might just be so foreign or like funny, just like straight up like kind of funny that something would be flying instead of running. Like I like that. Um, are there a lot of other features that you've been experimenting with in that language, or like I assume a lot of people like create different conlangs. Do you have like a bunch of random ones, or is this?
It's interesting because I have lots of like random ones that I like started but never finished. And I
Yeah,
guess to me, like I'm definitely the type of person where like I'll start with a project and I'll kind of not kind of just give up after like 2 weeks or something. But it's been kind of nice because I think since I made this video, people have been like commenting and be like, "Oh, where's the next update?" It's helped encourage me to actually flesh this one out. So this is definitely the most. I have other things, but this is the most fleshed out one. And like there's been a lot of other things that I've been thinking about, like, okay, how would dragons view the world? One of the big ones, actually, I love taking inspiration from real life languages. And in Navajo, they have this animacy hierarchy where words have to come in a certain order depending on how animate they are. So like humans must come before animals in a sentence because humans are more animate, and animals must come before objects like rocks and stuff because they're more animate. And so I thought, oh, that'd be really cool. Like, what if dragons did that, but dragons have to come before humans, like, or something like that, right? Like dragons see themselves as higher than humans, so they must always come first in the sentence, and
oh
have to
yeah, I
come
love
back to
it.
grammar and stuff.
That's really yeah. I didn't know about that animacy hierarchy. I
Uh,
think there's something similar in English, right? Like with the adjectives, but I don't know if that's animacy. It's just like might just be
oh,
like
like an order.
yeah,
I've
like
really heard that before. I'm not sure the details, but
it's like you'd say like a little blue house, but you wouldn't say a blue little house or something like right like.
yeah, there's a
But
strict, like a specific order you have to say. Otherwise, it sounds weird, like something about it,
yeah, it's not animacy. There's some like
like a
abstract
hierarchy.
scale that makes sense. um, yeah, that's really cool. Yeah, I love experimenting with Conlangs, although I'm similarly have not spent like a crazy amount of time on one. But that's like a cool way to teach. So I love that you're doing that. And yeah, maybe I always, I think something's always telling me like whenever I get struggle with some linguistic structure or something, I'm always like, you could fix that. Like you can make a language where that's not a problem. Then you'll just make the perfect language. Like that's always like some voice in my head.
The power's in your hands.
Yeah, so it's like it always prevents me from taking one too far because I'll just realize like that like there's certain choices you have to make like up on the branch of like the universal grammar tree or whatever
Yeah.
that like prevent you from making some other choice later down the line. But yeah, that's obviously yeah. I don't know what's the status of the universal grammar idea. I guess it's like kind of like
I think it's
sort of
mostly like,
accepted.
I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's kind of, I don't know. I feel like it's like been softened over time, like
Yeah,
decades and decades, like a lot of claims and walked back about it.
yeah. I just remember that there's like some things. Whereas like if you have like a verb at the end of a sentence, if you're like or SOV, then you probably have adjectives after nouns or something. Like there are certain things that like just don't really work if you. I think there's exceptions to that one, hence the softening. But I think there's just certain things that don't work when you're building a language if you've already made one decision. So
Yeah, no, I think there definitely is stuff like that where it's like SOV languages are way more likely to use like postpositions versus prepositions.
exactly,
Or like adjectives come before. Now, I don't remember the details, but yeah, I think that is still like relatively true. It's just not an absolute, like all languages
yeah,
like that. It's just like, I don't know, 80% of languages that have this feature also have this feature.
yeah. I guess that's the whole idea is like it's maybe there is some universal thing under there, but underlying thing, but it's probably it's hard to like actually draw those rules because they're probably more complicated than
Yeah.
the trees that people do. And also
Right.
maybe it's crazier than we think with different brain structures, as you're
Yeah,
saying. Yeah.
that's
Well,
true.
yeah. I guess we'll have to if you read into that more, definitely make a video on that. I'm curious because that would be really
I'm
cool.
looking into it. I really want to make a video about it, but it's like it's kind of dense literature, like having to read through this kind of stuff.
True.
So, but I mean, I've been enjoying it, so I'll keep you updated.
Yeah, definitely do. I want to see that because it's I don't know. I try to like I know I've seen this with your channel. You kind of like mix in other topics. Like one thing I always try to mix in a little bit is like neuroscience because like psycholinguistics like sort of matches up with linguistics in a lot of ways, like semantic priming and whatever all that stuff. But yeah, neuroscience is so crazy. It's a really cool field. So um,
Very young field, relatively, at least like
yeah,
modern idea of it. So there's like so much more room to grow. It's kind of fun to think about.
yeah, it's almost like the new papers that come out. Like I'm like there's the one about I don't even know if this is neuroscience. The Olo color. Have you seen that?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
like I had
yeah,
to make a video on that because I was like, what? That's like I don't know. That's just like that's crazy.
yeah, right. I want to see it so badly. I want to go to that
Yeah,
laboratory.
I feel like it's gonna be like you'll see it and then you can never go back or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, there's some like Rick and Morty episode where they do that. It's like somebody like experiences true level. Morty experiences true level, the perfect flatness, and then he can never go back. So maybe it'd be like that, but still want to do it. Sorry. Um, yeah, well, I think we've covered a lot of the stuff I wanted to talk about. I think as like a way to wrap it up, I would definitely want to hear like what kind of advice you have for people getting into linguistics because I know there's a lot of people on this channel like aren't I don't think there's that many linguistics majors out there or whatever like people that are like crazy to do it. So I assume that a lot of them are just kind of getting into it, and I want to what advice do you have for people who's getting into studying it, like where they can go to find cool resources and all that?
Um, it sounds bad because I've told them before when they first hear it, they're like, "What?" Because you shouldn't trust Wikipedia in general, but Wikipedia just for like a beginner is like really really useful for just getting like your toes wet and just dipping your toes into like just a bunch of different linguistic things and just going down those rabbit holes of just like just click on some random language and look at all the features it has and then like figure out some other language and look at a different language family and all those features it has. And so at least for beginners, it's a really good way to start. And if you're looking for something a bit more advanced, then I would like look into a few languages you're interested in. And honestly, if you just look up like beginners linguistic textbook blank and whatever language you're interested in, and you can probably find a free PDF because they like Oxford or Routledge, they publish like free I mean they publish textbooks on most of the at least the most popular languages in the world and some of the most like fundamental linguistics about them. It's a really good way, like for Arabic, for example, if you just look up like Oxford Handbook of Linguistics, you'll find tons of free PDFs from all over the past like few decades and they kind of just give you like a huge broad overview of the linguistics of Arabic. And like pretty much any language that has more than like 10 million speakers, you're probably going to find a textbook for it. So if you're looking for something a bit more in depth, if you already know a bit about linguistics, I would do that. But honestly, starting, you could even just surf Wikipedia for a bit. Don't do that too much,
Yeah,
but
I know.
just to get
It's like,
started.
yeah, you never want to like cite it. I guess
Yeah.
true papers or whatever. But yeah, I don't know if it's just like something about the linguistics community, but yeah, it's really detailed, like crazy detailed articles on linguistics. I don't know. Maybe I'm just like maybe that's just how Wikipedia is. But it seems like for other topics that would be equally as niche, there wouldn't be so much documentation. But I think just linguists have to fill it in like as soon as something changes or as soon as they documented some new language. So
That's how
you
I
can
feel.
find a lot.
I don't know if you use Wiktionary at all, like the dictionary version of
Oh
it.
yeah.
Like that's the same thing where it's like it's kind of crazy how much people have documented like so many different languages and so many etymologies. I
Yeah.
guess internet linguists have just decided like, okay, this is gonna be our website where we just collect everything.
Exactly. Yeah, no, Wiktionary is another like absolutely awesome resource for yeah, going down your own personal like etymology rabbit holes, right? Like you click on one link and then the next and then it's just like Wikipedia, but yeah, it's specifically for words and very, very cool resource. Yeah, I don't know what it is, but there's so much there. Linguists definitely have band together and uh made that their home right there.
I love it. No, it's great. Great resource.
Yeah, and what about language learning? Any like general tips for that?
I personally am like just a big fan of classes. Like when I learned more in my Arabic classes than I did through independent study. And that's not to say you can't do it. Like maybe it just depends on the person, different personality types. But classes are huge for me. And I know that's not feasible for everyone. So the alternative that I really like is there's certain apps like HelloTalk and Tandem that will pair you with native
Yeah,
speakers. Yeah, and those are really good because you get paired to someone who's trying to learn your language and you're trying to learn their language. And so you kind of both help each other out and you get to practice speaking, which is I think the most important thing, like the practice with a native speaker, like that's the best way to learn a language, honestly.
yeah, and it's also like it's like a mental barrier too. I think once you like get the experience of just even if it's like over the phone through like Tandem or something, right? Like you're just of somebody understanding you, like when you're talking in a different language, like it just like all of a sudden like it's like a aha moment. Like you realize like oh my gosh, like this like actually is a thing. Like I wasn't just learning all this like for no reason. Like it actually works. And funny enough, Tandem. I used that when I was younger, learning Spanish, and they actually commented on one of my videos
Really?
recently.
Oh, that's awesome.
Like sort of like promotion. I think they say like, yeah, it's like, yeah, exactly what he's saying. You got to talk to people. Like it was like,
That's
but yeah,
great.
I guess I'm like implicitly advertising them right now. But yeah, it's definitely really good to just get any kind of experience having somebody or I don't know. It's like I feel like there's so much about linguist or language learning that's about confidence. Like it really is like you speak better, you're better at it when you're more confident, and it motivates you more, right? So
Yeah,
um,
that's a huge thing. Like, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Like, if you don't know the grammatical structure, just try to like, just force yourself to say something, and even if it's wrong, so be
yeah,
it. Just getting practice speaking, and like, if you're wrong, so be it. Like, people know you're not a native speaker. It's okay, you know?
yeah, it's just like circumlocution. They say like figuring out a way to
Mm.
say it with what you have learned, with that 80% that first part of the Zipf's law that you've learned, and people will understand which word in that crazy tale you're actually referencing, right?
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
that's definitely good advice. Yeah, and just final question: how has linguistics and language learning improved your life? What do you say?
Oh, I mean, I'm very happy with like languages and linguistics and all that stuff. I mean, for one, for me personally, since I'm Lebanese, like it's given me a lot more of a cultural connection back to like my heritage and like the fact that I can communicate a lot more easily with my family now, like my extended family who's back in Lebanon, is great. So just for on a personal level, but even not just on that, like so like I also learned French and like when I was in France a few months ago, just being able to like speak with people, like just connecting with people, even if I mean one thing to connect with heritage and family, but just getting to connect with people and meet them where they're at. It's always great to do that, especially like when I'm traveling, if I'm ever abroad and I don't speak the language, I kind of feel bad because here I am.
Yeah,
I speak English and like English is kind of the default language. It kind of feels arrogant, but I don't know. There's something like really rewarding speaking a language like with you speaking someone else's language, especially when you go to visit their country or whatever. Something very rewarding about that. And I mean, of course, even on a more fundamental level, just like linguistics in general, I think I don't know, like it kind of makes you appreciate like the things that we're doing all the time without thinking about it. The fact that language is always going on and we just kind of take it for granted. But especially when I don't know, the more you look into languages and linguistics, the more you develop appreciation for all the different cultures, what we're doing all the time, the way the brain is just able to do all this
Yeah.
like so quickly. So I don't know, there's like definitely an appreciation for a lot of things, humans, culture, language in general.
Yeah, no, I mean, I always think about like how just knowing about linguistics helps you like understand history and like
Yeah.
yeah, just it provides a depth because languages are often kind of useful proxies for like ethnicities and stuff, so you can kind of understand what people's perspectives in the past and today like really well. And also I was gonna say I could relate to you when you're traveling and and what like I'm traveling to some country where it's like the language only has like 2 million speakers or something, but like I'll be like mad at myself for not knowing it. Like as if
Yeah,
I like
right.
was gonna somehow have the opportunity to like learn like the top like 200 languages in
Yeah,
the world.
right.
But yeah, so it'll be right. But it does help with yeah, with travel for sure. I think that's a great, and yeah, the family reason, that's a really cool reason to be able to talk to, like, yeah, impress your cousins or whatever. That's really cool.
Yeah, no, definitely very nice. And it's very rewarding personally. And like, I don't know, I mean, I've never met anyone who's learned a language and not been like, wow, like what a rewarding or great culturally I know, yeah, very rewarding experience. I think rewarding is the best way to
Yeah,
put it, you know?
yeah, yeah, definitely. It's hard because a lot of people are forced to learn languages, right? Like in school. And yeah, I don't think you can do as much with it's kind of like leading the horse to water. Like it's like you really have to have that internal motivation, that internal drive to enjoy it. But yeah, but everybody who I know that's like had that and like just outside of school or whatever, just made that a big thing for them. Yeah, they've loved it. It's been a really cool thing. I don't know if that's a selection bias or something, but
Yeah, maybe it
yeah,
is. But like, I
it's
think if you're electing to learn a language, you're going to be I know you're probably self-motivated enough. And like you said, like no one, if you're being it reminds me of like I think in like ninth grade, I think I was forced to read 1984 and I just found it really boring. I didn't care about it. And a couple years later, I read it on my own accord and I absolutely loved it.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
you just got to do it if you want to do it. If you're forced to do it, you're not going to enjoy it.
exactly. Yeah, I feel like that's like a tale as time with so many things in like in stuff you learn in school is like you relearn it later and you're like, wait, why didn't I like this? But yeah, it's all about finding the right motivation for especially
Yeah.
something difficult, right? Like that, or that is a time investment. But yeah, I mean, your content and and especially with anybody who's interested in learning Arabic, like I think that's the kind of thing that might take somebody that's on the fence and convince them, hey, maybe I should give this a go. It seems like it kind of opens you up to a lot of cool stuff. So glad you're out here making videos. I want to see that. What was the one we were talking about before? Oh yeah, talking about that brain.
Oh yeah, different parts
Yeah.
of the brain. I'll
So
get on it. I'll get on it for
yeah, I'll tune in some more Jargonic
Yeah, let's go.
videos as well. And
I want to see you should make I mean, I know you've been making conlangs maybe in the past, but you should start making some videos about some.
yeah, I should. I think I made one about because I my Conlang background. I learned Tokipona, so I actually made like
Ooh.
a lot of content in Tokipona originally. It's kind of actually part of how I got started with the linguistics videos. But yeah, I should cover some more of them because there's also really cool. I did K-pop, but yeah, there's so many really interesting projects, and um, they always I feel like focus on some really cool feature that then you can tie into like an educational
Yeah.
yeah
Yeah.
like message. So yeah, that's it. People definitely seem to be interested in that. So I'll have to make it more of a priority in the future videos. Um, but yeah, I'm really enjoyed having this conversation today, and appreciate you joining up. Hopefully I can get this recording to work. I
Yeah.
think there's just that 2 minutes at the beginning.
I
The
think
two
other than
minutes
that, it
I
seemed
think
really good
that
though. So
yeah. Otherwise, yeah, it seems like we've had pretty good fidelity here. So
yeah. Great.
yeah, without further ado, I hope you have the great rest of your day, and to everybody listening, hope you do too.
Yeah. Have a nice day. Thank you for having me as well.